Thanks for tuning in for this Ask the Experts panel for NAS. I'm Mike Wang from the University of Miami. We're going to be talking today about transition to practice. That is when you finish your residency or fellowship and you take your first job and first couple years out, a time that is fraught with an incredible amount of angst for most people. And I guess most people listening are probably familiar with the statistic that something like 1/2 of ortho, spine, and neurosurgeons will change jobs within the first 2 years, which is kind of a scary statistic. So I've brought together a panel of folks who I think are experts on this. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Zach Ray from WashU St. Louis.
I'm Brian Park from the University of Miami.
Alex Satin from Texas Back Institute.
Great, well, thanks for joining us. I want to start with you, Alex. You're a couple years out, you're orthopedic spine, right?
Correct.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the process you went through when you were picking through jobs and interviewing? And I know it's a lot of discussion, but some of the pearls on how that went for you a couple years ago.
So I actually have a pretty interesting story in that I'm originally from New York and was planning on going back to New York and had a job there with a great practice, but was ultimately given the opportunity to join my fellowship mentors at TBI and join their practice, which kind of happened at the 11th hour for a variety of reasons. And so it was definitely an interesting experience for me that fortunately turned out really well.
Was there some bad blood because you did it so late in the process?
It was definitely something that weighed on me. I don't think it was super well received, but it was also in the middle of COVID. And so the world was in a really interesting place at that time. And I think ultimately they respected that I did what was best for me and my career.
Now, I know you trained in a great residency program and a great spine fellowship program. Both kudos to your mentors. Obviously, you're the end product of that and it sells itself. But maybe you can give us some insight without getting overly personal. What drove you to make that decision change? Because it's hard to change your choice or decision, right? There's a lot of inertia.
Yeah. So it was definitely challenging from a family perspective, as both my wife and I are from New York, and I did have a personal relationship with that group in New York, so that was challenging. But it just was presented me with a unique opportunity from a research and practice standpoint, as well as being involved in our fellowship, and it was ultimately an opportunity that I didn't think I could pass up.
So just a too good an offer to refuse,
Yeah.
right? And if you were to talk to folks who are looking at this process today, right? What would you say are the key variables? Is it the contracting? Is it the people? Is it the location? They all matter, but what are the things that drive folks and how they decide?
Yeah, I think location is pivotal. I think also practice structure. Are you looking for academics or private practice or privatemics? I think if you're married or have a spouse, it's incredibly important to consider their input and where they're ultimately going to be happy. And then, if you have a unique interest in a specific subspecialty, is the practice going to allow you to explore that?
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm going to turn to now to Brian Park, which is almost the diametrically opposite situation. Brian is a neurosurgeon. He's doing his fellowship with us, but Brian signed early. So, Brian, you want to talk to our audience a little bit about the process, what you were thinking when that happened?
Yeah, I've been in a fortunate position to be able to commit to a job very early. So for me, it was really about trying to figure out what I wanted first. And I knew I wanted to do academic spine. And second was just the job opportunity kind of coming together and just at the right time. So it just presented itself, and that happened just to be early in the process. And when I got a chance to really get to know the group better, I could really see myself working with the people, and that was a very important part for me. So,
now, you're going to join Russ Lonzer to Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have family there.
I don't.
So this wasn't one of those I have to live in this city, so I'm going to LA or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think it was? Because you signed essentially before you even started fellowship, right? So what crystallized that for you? Was it the interview process? Was it what you saw about the practice? What was it?
Yeah, it's a combination of all those things, but really getting to meet them in person, and I think a lot of it is not tangible. It's kind of like a feel thing for me. That's kind of how I've just been. That's just the way I am, and I got a good feeling from the group. I could see myself really thriving in that environment. So
Excellent. So now we'll take the shoe and put it on the other foot. Zach Ray's the spine director, right, at WashU. And Zach, how many folks have you hired in your tenure? I mean, it's been quite a number, right?
Yeah, we started at 3 and now we're up to 10.
So you hired 7 spine surgeons, essentially, in neurosurgery.
Right.
So you have a lot of experience. We're about the same age. You've seen a lot of people come, and has anybody, and maybe a couple go, or?
Yeah, I think, to your point, a good fit in that the collegiality and the group that you're joining is pivotal. But one thing that Brian said that I think is really important, and you lose sight of when you're a trainee, is what do you want? What do you want? Because all along this journey, everybody's been telling you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to tick this box. And then suddenly you're at a transition where they say, what do I want? What does my family want? And that's an important thing. And they need to want to be there and be a part of something. And I think that is, an alignment or a common thread that has really, really helped our division. And again, to your point, a feel thing is certainly a part of it. But again, what do you want? Is it academics? Is it private? And so figuring that out for yourself is going to probably make you the most successful. But that's what I look for, is somebody that wants to be a part of, something bigger.
So, I mean, everybody knows WashU and its importance in not only the Midwest, but in this country as regards spine for ortho and neuro. So I can imagine that you have no shortage of young men and women calling you saying, I want a job, working with Zach Ray at that spine center, because it is really a phenomenal setup they have. Tell us a little about what you do actually look for. Maybe give us like a worst and best case scenario. Like when you see an applicant, you meet them, like, wow, that when the person was telling me about this, that was where I knew, wow, we want to give them an offer. Or another situation might be like, oh my God, that's like very cringeworthy, Yeah.
Well, I will start with it. I have a great partner on the orthopedic side, Brian Newman. And so that makes it easy because I feel like him and I are lockstep. But to your point, it's probably simple, and it sounds a little cliche, but it's affable, able, and available, right? So if you have those 3 things, you're probably going to be successful. Wait
a minute, you put affable ahead of it.
Yeah.
Available.
Yeah.
It's usually available first.
I think available, affable, and then probably ability is on the backside. But somebody that fits in that has all 3 of those is probably going to do well and be a good partner.
And the really big red flags?
Yeah, I don't know that. I figured that out just perfectly. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I mean, I can think of a lot that I see, but we'll come back to that. We'll put a pin in that and come back. So let me turn back to Dr. Satin over here. So, you're a couple years out. Now you've gotten some experience in the job and you're working. So now you look back on your former self during the COVID era.
Sure.
Like, anything you would have done different in terms of the process? I know that, obviously you landed in a great place, but as someone's starting to explore, like, would you have interviewed more, even at places maybe you're not going to go to, or would you have not wasted your time? Would you have gotten more detail? Would you have gotten a contract lawyer? What would you have done differently if you could do that again?
Yeah, I definitely utilized the contract attorney in all facets of my journey and would highly recommend that to anybody starting this process. We know a lot about medicine and spine surgery. We don't know a lot about contract law, especially at that early part of your career. And so that's definitely a valuable resource. And I found that a lot of attorneys are willing to work with trainees and their understanding of where you're at financially. And so I thought that was incredibly valuable. I don't know if I would have done anything differently, to be honest with you. I think it ultimately worked out well for me, and is a good story to tell people sometimes because of how interesting it is. But I truthfully wouldn't necessarily change much because of where I ended up and how happy I am.
Where were the attorneys most of assistance? Was it negotiation? Was it picking apart the contract? Was it just getting you smarter about the whole process? What did they really do for you? I mean, because they're not cheap, right? It's not a cheap thing when you're in training to spend for that.
It was really kind of going through the different aspects of the contract. It is almost like a foreign language when you're reading this verbiage and you really don't understand necessarily what even some of the terms mean, or you think you do, and in reality you don't, and the ramifications of what it would look like down the road. And so fortunately, the attorney that I utilized really went step by step and was like, do you understand what this paragraph or this subsection means for you? Not only as part of the group, or if you want to leave the group. And so that was definitely helpful.
Well, without divulging any sort of private or particular information, give us an example of like how a lawyer can sort that out for you.
Well, just understanding the financial ramifications of leaving a group.
So the termination contract part.
Well, yeah, or if you decide to leave, and are you going to be paid for the services rendered while you were there? Because, in some instances, the billing and payments can be done in many months later. And
Like
so,
the accounts payable portion.
yeah, and
Okay.
so that for me was interesting, and then just understanding the practice structure better. It was a few years now, so I don't remember the exact details for some things, but I remember spending a lot of time on the phone with them and really getting educated.
And when you had a lawyer, do you feel like that the group that you were joining felt like you didn't trust them or anything, or was it in any way odd like that?
No, I think everybody understands, and certainly being on the other side of the table, if we were ever hiring someone, I would not be offended and would actually encourage them to do so. That way, they felt as informed as possible.
Okay. All right. Well, Brian, I mean, let me throw it on you now. Then, so in your process, did you get an attorney to look at the contract and all that?
Actually, I didn't. I mean, I might be naive, but I was told like academic contracts are fairly like
Boilerplate.
Yeah, it is what it is. So I didn't feel the need to. I just kind of took what I saw as what I'm gonna get, and yeah. So
I'm kind of like you, Brian. I always feel like if I have to get into the nitty gritty, and maybe this is naive as well, that maybe the trust is sort of broken a bit. But again, this could be very different. Academic centers, they don't really give you that latitude. Do you find that to be true as well, Zach?
Yeah, I think that's right. And as you were going through that, I signed that contract without knowing any of the details. And I look back now, I probably would have an attorney review it, but I jumped right in, signed on the page without probably knowing how many pages I was signing. So.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that ultimately nothing was changed. It was more so just a greater understanding of what I was getting.
Oh, so it's the right group then for you, because
Yeah.
they set up a contract that you were actually fully willing to just take at face value.
Yeah, well, yes, but I guess I learned a little bit along the way.
Yeah, it's smart. Jack, let me turn to something that's really on my mind a lot, and probably on the minds of a lot of folks in art. We're similar age group. There's a lot of talk about the change in the generation, like, certainly the work hour stuff. You and I probably came up right as the work hour stuff was starting to hit. Mm-hmm. We worked tremendous hours, and then now there's going to be yet another. People are probably not aware. Another iteration of this, right? Mm-hmm. You've heard. They're going to limit the work hours even more strictly. Do you find that the way you look at prospective employees has changed, or do you think it's still the same deal for us?
I think it's the same deal, but I think you're right. I think it's changing and it's evolving, and the expectations and what's important are going to continue to evolve with those sorts of changes. But right now, I feel like that I have not found that to be the case, where everybody's there and they're rowing in the same direction and they understand the work requirement when they sign up. But I do fear that you're right, that is going to be something that we're going to have to address probably in training, but also making sure that everybody is safe in doing things in a way that's aligned with what the current standard is.
Yeah, that's interesting because everybody here has talked about this sort of cultural fit, right? The concept that it's like you just found another family, if you will, that you're willing to live inside of, right? But you hear this statistic as to half the people obviously end up in a broken home, you want to call it that, right? And I've struggled with this. I've always wondered about this, and I feel like I could do a great service to society if I ever managed to figure out why and come up with a solution. So I want to ask you guys this, and I'll start again with you, Alex, first. Why do you think it is that the statistic it's kind of like the divorce statistic. Nobody thinks they're going to be divorced when they're getting married, right? But yet half the people who sign up for a job, they're gone in 2 years. Like, what do you think, and I've got like 18 reasons why I think it might be. Why do you think that's the case? Obviously, you're not one of those people. But
sure.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have an experience with an institution, you can meet with them, interview, get a better understanding, but it's really hard to understand how the practice works, what the interaction with the partners are going to be like, what is call like, how busy are you going to be? Mm-hmm. I think that you can be told one thing, and it may not necessarily be inaccurate, but you may interpret it differently. And then I think, especially at the point that I am in my practice, and I have some friends who have changed jobs, I think people start getting into a different stage of their career, and I think money becomes a different consideration, and they hear what their friend is making somewhere else, and I think people get caught up in that as well, and it's understandable. But I think that those are some of the biggest things. Or your life changes. You get married, you have kids, and then the situation at that practice no longer becomes viable for you and your family.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, because I almost feel like in Zach and my generation, a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is the reason, a lot of people didn't settle in the right place because they didn't have any information. And now I feel like there's almost like too much information, maybe not the right kind, right? Because all the people are out there on social media, and, you know, advertising whatever they're doing or not doing. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, Brian, so tell me, like, you haven't gone through this process yet, but you've talked to lots of people, you know, in neurosurgery who have recently gone through this process. Why do you think this is going on?
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's just discordance with expectations and reality. I don't know if you know, whether the person didn't vet the job out well enough, or when they go there, it's not exactly what they were told. I think there could be a million reasons, but I don't know. It's just probably just a mismatch of expectations versus reality. That's my guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Zach?
I think it's a dating app phenomena that you know, sort of you pull the curtain back, and then, you know, what you thought you knew may not be the case. And you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, it is aligned with the divorce rate. You know, that half of these end. But you know, to your point, it's got to be that you know, it's not founded. You don't understand, you know, either what you're getting into, or, you know, life changes.
Is there a solution? I mean, we train residents, right? Yeah. You have residents
We have fellows.
You have fellows, right? So are we not doing an adequate job in preparing young men and women for their first job?
I think we're doing a better job, but I think, you know, to your point, I don't think you and I were probably prepared to choose the right job.
I was told where to go.
Yeah,
so.
right.
So maybe it was like an arranged marriage, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I don't know what the rate of that is, but maybe that's better.
It's higher.
Right.
The divorce rate's lower with arranged marriage.
Yeah, that's better. But no, I think that, you know, again, if we do a better job moving forward, that, you know, some of that may change.
Yeah, excellent. Well, this has been a very insightful conversation for me. Obviously, we can go on and on. This topic is of tremendous importance to people, not only the young surgeons that are starting, but of course, even senior surgeons who have to bring younger folks on and want them to be part of their family. So thank you for joining us for this NAS Ask the Experts, and join us for another video soon. Thank you.